we're holding on the bottom on Lamed Gimel Amid Beis. Lamed Gimel Amid Beis, we were doing a sugya of if you go ahead and you process wine less than that's tamei. If it's less than a beitza, so it will not be metama the mashke that comes out. And this is according to the opinion that the yayin is mifgad pocket, that it's considered a separate entity inside the kernel of the shell. So therefore, when the kernel received tuma, it didn't transfer it to the mashka. Conversely, if you hold that it is absorbed in it, then of course it's tamei. And the only way to avoid the problem of a mishnah that discusses tamei meis that's doing it b'taira is to saying that there was no huchshura, it was not huchshura kabel tuma. We said, what's the problem of we said why you need less than a beitza? We said because the gezerah that maybe you come to a takala, you'll come to keep it around. So then we're getting into the sugya of takala, keeping something around. We're then going to get into zroyim, then we're going to get into kachim, and then we're going to finish to the mishnah. So it's very, very involved. A lot of ideas, but since all the fellows here have finished shas that are online, we won't have a problem. Gufa, about 6 lines, 7 lines up. You're able to go ahead and use as a fuel source bread of truma that had contracted tuma and truma that was tamei. Abaya Omar Mishmei Dechizkiya V'Rava Omar the Beir Yitzchak Bar Marta Omar Afuna Loishanu. Oh, here's Pinchas Eliyahu in the house, and a merry holiday to you. Okay, so now we're 4 lines up from the bottom on Lamed Gimel Amid Beis. Leishanu Ela Pas. What can you use, and we're not worried about takala, is bread. In other words, you can keep it around. We're going to say that you threw it onto you threw with the eitzim, you went ahead and threw it onto the wood rack. Avalchita, but if it's kernels that are tamei low. Shema Yavel ben Takala, there were you worried you may come to go ahead and eat them. For Rabbi Yochanan, no, I feel chita. Even chita, you're not worried you can keep them around despite the fact that they're tamei, and we're not worried you will consume them. Why are we not worried? Ravashi is going to give a teretz in a second where you boiled them up and you kept them in a disgusting state. So the chita, you boiled up the chita, kept it in a disgusting state, and therefore you're not worried you'll come to eat it, despite the fact that it's tamei. Fred de Mara. So hachanami b'shaliksa misisei. V'heichi itma de Ravashi. Where the Ravashi say is din, where you boiled it up and made it in a disgusting state. Aha. Dam Rav Avin bar Rav Acha Rav Yitzchak Abba Abishol Gabon Shel Beis Rebbe. Abishol, who we met yesterday, right? Of Abishol, whether of Kesayis, according to Rav Papa, and Shavapruta, and Rav Papa and Charata, only a Shavapruta by Trumas, eating Trumas Shaygeg. That Abishol was the Gabel Risk Rebbe. He was the kneader, the Kneader, the kneader in Rebbe's house. He would heat up the hot water, bechitim shel truma tameya, with kernels of what? Of truma that had become tamei. Lolish behen isa b'taira, to knead dough b'taira. In other words, the water is being heated up by a tamitic sauce. Question: why aren't we worried that he'll may come to eat his chitim? He's making dough, right? Sourdough maybe, like some people make. Why are we worried that he's going to go ahead and eat his chitim? So Ravashi, and this is what Ravashi said is din, b'shaliksa umeisasa, where you boiled up the chitim and they were disgusting, and therefore we're not worried about somebody eating them. Okay, we're now going to digress, and we're going to eventually come back to this din of Tumah B'Taira. We're going to digress to the sugya. If something is truma and it gets tamei and you replant it, what's its status? Does it lose its shem truma? Does it retain its shem truma? And what about the gedulim that grow afterwards if it does retain truma? We've had this a few times in Shas. Abaye Baravin and his brother Chanina Baravin, Tanu Trumis Bei Rabba. They learned to say the Sechta Truma. They learned in the Yeshiva Rabba, and Pagabuhu Rabba Bar Masna. They met Rabba Bar Masna. So Amalahu. So he said, Rabba Masna said to Rabbi Chanina and Abaya Barovin, Maya Amisa B'Trumas the Bei Mar. In Yeshiva, what did they say about Trumas? So Amalei, they told him, my kashal, what's your question that you're asking this to us? In other words, obviously you assume that we learn this after Trumas, so we're experts in the matter. So what, Rabbi Master, what's your problem? So Amalei, so Rabbi Master told him, here's my problem. Tanan, the Mishnah in Trumas Perikas. Shesile Trumas, growths of Truma, Shenit Ma'u, they're Tameh. Now the Kayan can't eat it, it's Tameh. All he can do is burn it. However, Vishaslan, they went ahead and they replanted it. Vishlaslan. So now we say Taru Litame. But it's no longer Tame, it's Tahar. However, Vasurim Milachal, it's asa to eat. So by replanting the Truma in the ground, you took off the same Truma, it's Tahar, but it's asa to eat. So Fred the Gemara, the obvious question. If it's tar from being metame something else, why is it asa to eat? So Amulei, they told him, Rabba. This is what Rabba said again. Remember, this is what Rabba said. Rav Chanina and Rabbi are telling, and Abaya are telling Rav Abba Masno, but he learned in Yeshiva Rabba, Maya Surim, when it says Asa, Asurim Asarim. So in other words, guys, what you've done is you've taken Truma, you replanted it, it's no longer Tameh, and it's still Truma. So therefore, it's Asa for a Zar, a non-Kohen, to eat. So basically, you went back to what? To point A. It was point A, it became Tameh, you can't eat it. Guess what? Replant it. You're back to being Truma. The Zar can't eat it. The Kohen could eat it. And a very, very good way of going ahead and clearing up a Tameh problem. Fred Gemara, Umay Kamashmlan, what's the chiddush that Abaya and Chanan Barov are telling us B'Shem Rabba? Gidule Truma, that anything that grows from Truma is Truma. Tanina, we learned already. Gidule Truma, it's a Mishnah. So what's the chiddush? Gidule Truma is Truma. The Chitema, Gidulin, we're not speaking about the initial growth, but we're speaking about other things. Umay Kamashmlan, B'Dava Shein Zaroi Kila, and it's speaking by something. That it's zera is not kila, meaning, there are things that bulbs that they come back every year. If you plant onions, the onions come back every year. If you plant tulips, they come back every year. These are why? Because the seed is not kila, it doesn't get consumed. So now you plant truma, you plant an onion, and now this one onion grows and becomes 4 onions. Those 4 onions are considered gidulim gedula, the gidulim of the original bulb. So you're telling me that if you have truma of onions and you plant it, and if it grows again, it's still going to retain its status as truma, and therefore it's asal as zarim to go ahead and eat it? Hanami tanina, we learned that as well. Hatevel hagidulav mutarim. Tevel, meaning that you didn't go ahead and separate trumas and maisra, and you plant it, and it's asal behana, you can't use it yet. The gidulim mutarim, when b'davar shezaroi kila, with something where the zera is finished. In other words, if it's something that's not going to regrow, it's okay. Aval b'davar shein zaroi kila, that it doesn't get used up like an onion, I feel like gedulin asur, and even generations of future growth is asur. So again, what's the chiddush that Abai and Chananya are saying in the same of Rabba? Says Gemara, asur b'achila, so ishtiku. So Abai and Rav Chanina Baravim were quiet. So Amalei. So now Rav Abba Masna said, Rav Bar Masna said to them, "Bidish milcha b'ha." They said, "Did anyone hear anything?" So Amalahu. So Rabba, who had initiated the conversation in the first place, is now going to tell him the chiddush. Maybe this is what Rabba meant. Hachi Amar Rav Sheshes. When it says if you replant truma that's tmeya, that it's tahar, but it's asa, it doesn't mean asa l'zarim, guys. It doesn't mean it's truma. It's asurim lekahanim. It's asa to kahanim. So let's get this straight. Let's think about this. I got truma that's tameya. No one can eat it. A zar can never eat truma, and a kohen can eat it because it's tamei. I replant it; it's no longer tamei, but the kohen can't eat it. Question: if it's no longer tamei, why can't the kohen eat it? If it's no longer tamei, why can't the kohen eat it? In other words, if it's full-fledged truma, the kohen should be able to eat it. So why in the world can't you eat this? That, guys, this is the key to the sugya. We're going to be spending time on this. So again, you went ahead, you took truma tameya, you replanted it, it's now tahar. So obviously there was a physical change to this truma. It's no longer tameh. However, it's asa to kahanim to eat. So it's mashma, it's not truma anymore, or mashma it's tah, but it's not tameh. So where do you get this kind of halfway house? Bishlem, if you had told me it's asa for zorim, so I hear a chiddush. Now what? It was truma tameya. Now it's truma tahira. But if the Mefurish Mishnah, then I didn't have to hear Rabbah, and therefore that was the question that they posed to Abaya and Rav Chanan bar Rav by Rav Masna. But now Rav Masna is telling me in the Shem Rav Sheshes a huge chiddush. I'm taking the truma, it's tamei, I'm planting it, and clearly there's a change because now it's tahar, but nonetheless it's asa to kahanim. What halacha would asa the kahanim to eat this? What halacha would asa the kahanim to eat this? And for the Gemara, I'll tell you what halacha is. Hachyom Rav Sheshes, my asun lukanim, chayil v'silu lehen behesach hadas. There's a pasuk that says that shmerish tumasa, you have to watch truma. You have to watch truma that it doesn't become tamei. You're mitzvah in watching truma that it should not become tamei. You're mitzvah. There's a shmira. As soon as it becomes tamei, what did you do? There's no shmira anymore. We call that hesech hadas. That he just removed his head from that. In other words, I don't have to think about it. I'm only mitzvah to watch it, not to become tamei. Once it's become tamei, what am I watching? It's tamei. So therefore, you had hesech hadas. Says Rav Sheshes, when you plant it, good, it takes off the shame tumah. It, however, does not go ahead and correct the problem of hesech hadas. It doesn't correct that problem. Yes, Heshi.
Is that something new that it requires hesech hadas? Truma it always requires non-hesech hadas regular.
It always is a pasuk. The pasuk says that you should go ahead and es mishmeres trumasi. The pasuk says aved leishimur v'loy tesiach daitcha. It's a pasuk.
Okay.
It's a pasuk. Now, guys, listen to this lumdis. Listen to the lumdis. It's hesech hadas. Now that there's you created an isser if you have hesech hadas. Let's say it was truma tahira, and you masiach das. What are you worried about? Is it a din that it's now tamei? In other words, it's tamei. Or no, is it a new psul? It's a psul aguf. In other words, it's not tuma, it's something called hesech hadas. In other words, what is hesech hadas? I didn't have it in mind. I don't know. So if I don't know, maybe it became, there's two pshatim. Maybe it became tamei. So it's not creating a new din. It says I have to make sure it doesn't become tamei. I didn't make sure, and what? Maybe it's tamei. So if Eliyahu Hanavi would come along and tell you it's tahar, it would be tahar. You're only worried about tumah, right? Eliyahu is telling you, don't worry. What about if hesech hadas is a new din? It's not pshat that it's maybe you worried it's tamei. It's hesech hadas. There's a psul in the truma now that wasn't there previously. What's that psul? It wasn't watched. And even if Eliyahu Hanavi comes along and tells you it's tahar, we don't care because this is a new psul that has nothing to do with tumah. My nafkamina, if you replant it, if you're telling me hesech hadas is a din in a new din in guf, you created a new psul, so planting it does not take it off. But if you're telling me that hesech hadas is a din in tumah, so you just told me truma that was tamei, that was replanted, it takes off. So truma that he had hesech hadas, it also should take off since it's a tamei dikadin. That's the Gemara is going to declare that shaila, the tutstadim. So says the Gemara. So you're telling me now again, guys, let's go back. What's our problem? We have a Mishnah that says if you replant Truma Tameya, it's tahar, but Rav Shesha says Kahanim can't eat it. We're wondering, why can't Kahanim eat it? Why can't Kahanim eat it? So says the Gemara the following. If you're going to tell me that according to Reish Lakish, who holds that Hesach Hadas is a new psul, I understand Shapir, why Kahanim can eat it. Because once you created that psul, replanting it can't take off that psul. According to Rabbi Yochanan, that Hesach Hadas psul Tumah Have, that Hesach Hadas is a psul of Tumah, Ma'ik L'meimar. What are you going to say? Because just like when you were Maida, it's no longer Tameh if you replanted it. So if it's no longer Tameh, then it's no longer a Chesaron of Hesach Hadas. Guys, you hear the Tutstadim to the Shaila? Aryeh, you have a question?
Cause.
Yes, Aryeh.
What's the cause of Hesach Hadas? What happens to the product? What happens to the Truma?
So that's the Shaila. We have Machloikis between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. There's two ways to view it. The Chesaron of Hesach Hadas is an extension of a Shimur of Tyra. Meaning, if I don't watch it, I have to be suspicious. Maybe it became Tameh.
So put it in the ground. You said back we started.
Or is it a new din called Hesach Hadas? And therefore it's puzzle not to do with Tumah because there's halach of Shmira. And if you don't do Shmira, it's puzzle. Not because you're worried it became Tameh, because you didn't do Shmira. So if you're holding that it's a din in Tumah, then planting it in the ground should take off that problem. If you hold, however, that it's a psul, then I can understand why it doesn't take off that problem. Because it can only take off a Tumah problem, and this is not Tumah. This is a psul of Hesach Hadas. So now we're introducing the two tzpadim. Says the Gemara. The Itmar, Hesach Hadas, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, psul Tumah Have. Hesach Hadas is a psul Tumah. I'm just concerned whether it's Tameh or not. That's what I'm concerned about, whether it's Tameh or not. Right? And therefore it's a problem. According to him, if you replant it, it should be mutter to the Kohen. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, no. Psul haguf have. It's a new psul. Rabbi Yochanan psul Tumah have. Listen, nafkamin and halacha. Shem yavay Eliyahu. If Eliyahu would come along, be a tarena, and tell you, you know what? It's tar. Shoymim lo. You'd listen to him. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish psul haguf have. Shem yavay Eliyahu be'atirenu ain't shoymim lo. You don't listen to him. Why? Because the psul is still there. Guys, it's very interesting. If you hold it's a psul aguf Hesach Hadas, it's a suffix. I don't know the status of this truma. It lost its status. It had a chazaka of being tahar. There's a mitzvah to watch it. If I don't watch it, it no longer has that chazaka. Eliyahu can restore that. If, however, when I don't watch it, it creates a new din in the truma, not a din in truma. It's creating a din of psul. What's the psul? Hesach Hadas. Eliyahu can't correct it because it's not a suffix. It's like a new din in the truma, in the truma. Arya, you have it now?
Yeah, but why don't you say go back again?
What do you mean?
He says the Hesach Hadas is because Hesach Hadas caused this thing. But if he knows it wasn't Tameh, so go back. There's no Hesach Hadas. Doesn't make a difference.
Again,
well, you say no matter what, Hesach Hadas puts the psul on the thing, and that doesn't.
Right. According to that side, it has nothing to do with Tumah. It's you created a new Issa. It's just a sarin of Tumah. But like Reish Lakish, it's a chiddush. You're creating a new din called Hesach Hadas, and that can't be taken off by planting in the ground. So this answer only works according to Reish Lakish. It doesn't work according to Rabbi Yochanan, because according to Rabbi Yochanan, once you replant it, it should be mutter for the kohen to eat it, because replanting takes off the tumah problem, and Hesach Hadas was just the tumah problem. It's a very nice lumdus, guys. Very nice lumdus. Okay, let's see.
How could the mitzias of replanting Heschadas it's a davish lo ba'olam? How could I be replanting Heschadas goes to the next generation, so to speak?
I didn't understand that.
In other words, I planted something that to get something new. So therefore, that when the something new has a whole new identity. So how could I continue with Heschadas? There is no a generation again, apart.
We're speaking about that it doesn't lose that identity. Since this new thing that comes into the world is coming about as a result of something you have Heschadas from, Tuma can't take that off. It can't take off Heschadas, according to Rabbi Reish Lakish. Because whatever's growing is growing from Heschadas, from that psul. It's growing from that psul. Okay, guys. Outside. Let's give you Yedias outside. You know that there's something called an oilas ha'oif and a chatas ha'oif. An oilas ha'oif is performed above the chut hasikra, above the red line. You had to go up on a ramp, and the chatas ha'oif is done below. The chatas ha'oif is done on the southwest side of the mizbeach, on the southwest side. If there was a psul, some psul in the chatas ha'oif, there'd be a window, a little. It's a machlekes exactly what it is. Is it on the floor over there? Is it in the side? Is it in the mizbeach? Machlekes, the Rambam, the Ravid. What exactly this hole was? But there was a hole in case there was a psul problem. You would put the chatas ha'oif there, wait until the next morning, which is called oivet surasan. In other words, create a psul of nicer, of lina, and then burn it. Okay? That's what you would do. You would create a psul of now. What psul would it be? What psul would it be that you'd have to wait? Now, we know there are many psul in Kachim. We've all been through Shas. There's the psul of Pigel, where the Kohen had the wrong machshava. There's the psul of Yaitza, where you took it outside the Azara. There are many psulim. Now, if it's a psul haguf, if it's a psul innately in the meat, you don't have to wait to get a new psul of nicer. You burn it right away. So with that in mind, let's see the kasha that Rabbi Yochanan, who said Tuma, is asking on Reish Lakish, who said that Hesach Hadas is a new psul. Esevei. So Esevei, Rabbi Yochanan says it's a din in Tuma. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, who says that what it is a psul in a new psul. Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan Barak Oiner, Lul Katan Haya ben Kevesh Mizbeach. There was a small opening, a hole or a window on the Marabe Shal Kevesh, on the south side, the west side of the ramp. Shesham Hayazarkim Psule Chatas Ha'oif. There they would throw the Chatas Ha'oif that became puzzle, the Tu'ubat Surasan, and they would lose their Tsura, they would lose their image. The yoit, meaning you leave it there overnight, guys. Leaving it overnight, it loses its moisture. So that's considered ubat surasan. The yoit's in the base hasreifa, and you would take it out to the base hasreifa. Bishleim, you're going to tell me that the psul that happened over there is a psul tuma mishum hachi boy ibrit surah. That therefore you need to wait and go ahead, and it should lose its thing. Shema yav Eliyahu v'yitrena. Maybe Eliyahu would say, maybe it's tahar. And therefore you have to create a new issa. Again, if the psul of Hesach Hadas was what? The assumption here, the assumption over here is that the psul was a kashash of tumah. Go up, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom in Rashi. 6 lines up from the bottom in Rashi. V'al korchach the be'inin havart surah. Why do you need to let it go overnight? Lav kishet pigelba. It's not that there was pigel in it. Or nit mas, or it became tamei. Or yatzisa, or went out of the azara. Or molka shaloi kimitzvasa, or you did malika not correctly and you created the vela. The hapsul ma'al yahavi, because those are good psulim, and therefore you would not have to wait. Why would you have to create a new psul? Guys, when you're waiting even surasan, meaning you're creating psul of nicer, of leaving it overnight, correct? Why do you need this? So the only thing could be is hesach. Good? So guys, here's the story. Where the Rashi is saying the fact that you have to leave this overnight is because he had hesach hadas from Kodshim. Just like there's a din of hesach hadas by Truma, there's a din of hesach hadas by Kodshim. So the Kohen performed the avodah. He in this chatas oif, he did malika correctly. He did the machshava correctly. He knows that it didn't touch the sheretz. He knows that it stayed within the azara, because if any one of those psulim would have transpired, you wouldn't have to wait to create a new psul. You'd burn it right away. Why do you have to go ahead and create a new psul over here? It's obviously because you're not sure whether it's what? Ruined or not. So now, let's view hesach hadas.
Sure, I understand. We're not sure.
Bishlema, watch. Bishlema, if hesach hadas is a din in tumah, meaning a suspicion of tumah, I have to wait to burn it. Why? Because maybe Elio will come and say, this is a ganz fine chatas oif, and the kohen can eat it. You can't burn it. You can't burn it. But if you're going to tell me, like you, Reish Lakish, that it's a new psul, so why is it different than the psul of Lina? Why is it different than the psul of Pigel? You should be able to burn it right away. That's the question on Reish Lakish. That's the question on Reish Lakish. Esibe, one more time. Lul kat na ben kevesh mizbech marav shel kevesh. Shesham ha yizarkim psuli chatas oif v'tu'ubet surasan. And you go again, you wait till it goes up, right? That loses, you create the isser of lina. V'yoytz in the base hasreifa, and you would burn it. Very good if you're going to tell me, like I hold, that hesach hadas is a psul tuma. And the chashad here is hesach hadas. Mishum hachi boy ibit surah. Therefore, you have to create the isser of ibit surah. Shema yav Eliyahu v'karena. Maybe Eliyahu is going to show up and say it's tar. So therefore, I can't burn it. According to you, Shimon and Lakish, that you say it's a new isser. So lamali ibit surah. Why would you need to go ahead and wait till it loses its form? Why would you have to create an isser? But Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, or Vatan, you learned in the Brisa, Zeh klal amid beis. This is the rule. Kol shepesuloi begufai yisroif miyad. Anything that's a psul in the guf of the matter comes possible right away. Bidam, if it's psul in dam, meaning there's no dam left. Ubabolin, or the bailim, let's say the bailim became tameh, and the psul is in the bailim by Korban Pesach, then tubat surasan v'yotz in the beis hasreifa. So this l'chayra, according to Reish Lakish, hesach hadas is a psul haguf. Since it's psul haguf, you should burn it right away. That's the question that Rabbi Yochanan asked Reish Lakish. Guys, we're good? You had the cheshbon?
Yeah.
You had the cheshbon. Okay. So Amalei, so Reish Lakish answered Rabbi Yochanan, Hai Tana Tana Dvei Rabba Baravuahu. The Tana of the Mishnah of Lul Katan is the same Tana of Rabba Ravua. The Amar, Afilu Pigel Toyin Ibet Surah. In Pigel needs Ibet Surah. Even something that's a Psul Haguf needs Ibet Surah. So certainly Hesach Hadas would need Ibet Surah. You would have to go ahead and wait till it's overnight. Okay? So therefore, in other words, don't ask a question from this brisa, this Mishnah of Rabbi Yochanan Breika, this goes according to the man who says that psul haguf you have to wait overnight. Therefore, even though hesach hadas is not a din in tumah, even though hesach hadas is a psul b'fnei atzmo, you'd have to wait overnight to burn it. Esavei nitma. Okay, now there's a machloikis we're going to have later in the Masechta. If let's say there's no basar. Let's say the basar became tameh. Can you do zrikas dam? Do you need basar there to do zrikas dam or not? So Rabbi Eliezer is going to say, I don't need basar there. And Rabbi Yeshua says you do need basar there. So now, nitma, if the basar became tamei, nifsel habasar, or the basar became pasal, psul yaitza, yatza chutz lekloyim. So now you don't have basar, guys. In other words, you have physical basar, you don't have a halachic basar, correct? It's ruined. The basar is ruined. But Rabbi Eliezer says, Yisraik, this is Rabbi Eliezer l'shitasai, right? Dam, as long as you have dam, even if you don't have basar, you can do zrika. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, lo Yisraik, because Rabbi Yeshua is of the opinion, im ein basar, ein dam. However, umayde Rabbi Yeshua, shem zorek, if in fact you do zrika, hurtza, it will be accepted. We know that the tzitz had magical powers, the tzitz that the Kohen Gadol wore, called Nezra Kodesh, right? That had magical powers. It had the ability to go be Mimratz on Tumah. So therefore, you shouldn't be lichatchila, do not go ahead and sprinkle blood on meat that's tamei. If you do, hurtza, it works. My nifsel, now, when it said above, guys, it said, nitma or nifsel abasar. Now, what psul are you talking about? Because right afterwards you say yaitza. So if you had a psul of yaitza and you had a psul tumah, what is the psul? Psul is lav behesach hadas. It's hesach hadas, meaning the kohen lost shmira. Psul tumah hava. Very good. If you're going to tell me that it's psul tumah, that would explain hainu de mishkachla the meratzei tzitz. Guys, look at the words of the brisa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down. 5 lines down. Esabei. Nitma. Clearly, what happened to the meat? It became tameh. Aisha nifsal. Nifsal puzzle is a very ambiguous term. It just says it became puzzle, correct? Next term. Aisha yatza chutz lekloyim. It's very exact. So you had tamei, yes. You had yaitza, and you have something called puzzle. And on all these three things, if you do a zrika, the tzitz will be maratza. Good. The havamina is that nifsel is hesach hadas. Now the tzitz can only be maratza on certain things, and one of them is tumah. So bishlema, if you tell me the word nifsel means hesach hadas, and it means tumah, I can understand why the tzitz is maratza, why the tzitz would make it accepted. It's in its power to do that. But if you're going to tell me that, like you, Reish Lakish, that nifsel hesach hadas is a psul b'fnei atzmai called hesach hadas, that the tzitz could be maratza on that. Kasha on Reish Lakish. Let's see it inside. Esavei. Nitma oy nifsel habasa oshiyatza chutz lekloyim. Rabbi Eliezer oymei yizraik, because even though there's no basa, l'shitasai, as long as there's dam, you're good. Rabbi Yeshua oymei lo yizraik. Why? It ain't basa, ain't dam. Umayd Rabbi Yeshua, that what? Here's the key. She'im zarak b'di'eved. If you do zrika, it works. Now, we said three things. 1, tuma. 2, psul. 3, yaitza. My nifsel, what's that second thing called psul? Lav behesach hadas. Good. Very good if you're going to say like I Rabbi Yochanan, that's psul tuma. Hainu di mishkachas lu di meratzei tzitz. It's very good. You find that tzitz makes a meratza. Tzitz can be meratza on tuma. And for the Gemara, my nifsel nisel b'tful yoim. You're right. It's not speaking about hesach hadas. Number 2 is speaking about it became tamei through its full yoim. Full yoim is a sheni. He touched it. It's now tamei. For the Gemara, ihachi hainu tamei. That's door number 1. Nitma. So what do you have to tell me? Psul. If you tell me psul means tamei, you already tell me tamei. You said tamei psul yaitza. So if nifsel means tamei, how can it be tamei? You already told me tamei in the first case. It says more trey gavni tamei. There's 2 types of tumah, right? Now, there's a very interesting Rashi over here. I want to show you a Yisoid in Rashi, guys. Mamish parallel to where we're up to now. Like I, Rabbi Yochanan, Yishmachi Moed Rabbi Yeshua, Shemzara Kurtz Hurtza, that the tzitz will be maratza. That filu nitma vadai, even with tamei vadai, not al suffix of hesach hadas. The afgav the tumah psula guf habe maratza tzitz, right? In other words, the tzitz is maratza on tumas vadai. Certainly, it's going to be maratza on on Hesach Hadas, which is only a suffix. Ulechatchila lo yizroik. Why? So why, if it's tzitz maratza, why can't you sprinkle the blood lechatchila according to Rabbi Yeshua? The kasava ritzui tzitz b'di eved who, that the ritzui of the tzitz, the whole din of the tzitz is b'di eved. In other words, it's like ein meval and it's lechatchila barach. In other words, just like it can't be meval it's lechatchila, you can't sprinkle dam lechatchila al smach that the tzitz should be maratza. If you do it, it'll work, but not lechatchila that you can do it. That's why Rabbi Yeshua says lo yizroi. Okay, so now we have the biggest site over here. This big machloikis by Hesach Hadas, loit Rabbi Yochanan and loit Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Loit Rabbi Yochanan, it's psul tuma. Loit Reish Lakish, it's psul of what? Of a new psul. Nafkamina would be planting it in the ground. Loit Rabbi Yochanan, it would take it off. The problem of Hesach Hadas. Loit Rabbi Reish Lakish, would not take it off. We questioned Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish from Chatas or Oif, that they go ahead by Hesach Hadas, they would store it until it got tamei. So why did you have to go ahead and store it? According to you, you should burn it right away. According to me, since it's a suffix tamei, that's why you had to store it. But according to you, that it's a new psul, burn it right away. We answered it that no, this is going according to Maniyama, that even psul if you don't burn right away. We're asking now another case: if the basa became tamei or pasul or yaitza, that the tzitz is maratza. Pasul must be on Hesach Hadas. Hesach Hadas for the tzitz maratza, it must be tumah, and now not this new category of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. And we're answering no. We're answering that it's not speaking about Hesach Hadas at all, and therefore it's not a kasha. It's speaking about a second category of tumah, al yidei tful yoim. So Reish Lakish has held serve. Says the Gemara Vaita. Kisolik Ravin, when Ravin came up from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, and he told him this teretz, guys. What teretz? The teretz of Hesach Hadas. That's again. Let's go back. We're trying to answer a Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? If you take tamei dika truma, plant it in the ground, it's no longer tamei, but it's also for the kahanim to eat. Where do you get this halfway house? And we're answering it's also to eat because of Hesach Hadas. So this teretz was given in Bavel by Rabba bar Masna. Ravin now goes up to Eretz Yisrael and reports this teretz to Rabbi Yirmiyah. Kisalek Ravin Amal Shmaitzel came to Rabbi Yirmiyah. Ba'amar, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, "Bavloi tipshoy, the Babylonians are full. You should be yasvei ba'ar dechashucha, since they live in a dark land. The bubbles in the valley. Amisa Shmaitzel mechashpe. They say a teretz. That's nishkain teretz. They say a dark teretz. Leishmilachu. Did they not hear Hoder Reb Shimon ben Lakish Mishmei der Vaishia? Did they not hear this following din? And listen to this din. Me'achag, the water that you're going to use for Nisa Chamayim during Sukkot, Shenitmu, it became Tameh. Now, there's a din called Hashaka, guys. Hashaka is taking something liquid, water, attaching it to the mikvah. The mikvah will be metaret. So if you think about it, Hashaka to the mikvah is the exact same thing as Zriya B'karka. View the water of a mikvah as mechubar l'karka. You're taking water and replanting it in water. So who adin? You're taking food and replanting it in the ground. So meichata shenitma hishikin v'akachek tishon. You did hashaka and then you mekadesh it to hoirin. You could use it for nisa chamayim. However, hikdishon, at first you magdash it v'akach hashikon and then did hashaka to meyin. Then it's tamei. Michti. Zriya ninu, if you're planting it, mali hashaka v'akach hekdishan. What's the difference if you do hashaka and then do kiddush? Mali hekdishan, if you first do kiddush, akach hashikon. Alma ein zriya lehegdish. What do you see? There's no zriya lehegdish. Achanami ein zriya letruma. There's no zriya letruma, and your whole teretz about Hesach Hadas is not a very good teretz at all. And the reason why you can't eat it because there's no zriya truma. Okay, let's go out what we just said. Rav Yirmiyah is giving a new teretz as to why it's us for kahanim to eat it. Right? Why? Because we find by hegdish that once something's in the state of hegdish, even if you replant it, it still retains its din of hegdish. It still retains its din of hegdish. So too over here, if truma is replanted, it still retains its din of truma. So I'm wondering if the issa over here is only to zorim and not to kahanim, right? I'm wondering the teretz over here, what its teretz is. Okay.
Dobie Fisher in there? Dobie, Elazar Fisher, Elazar Hirsch.
Do we
Here
have
they come, here they come. Get in the car.
Should I turn it back on so we can hear Penny yelling at his kids? No. Let's have Rahmanis on him. Okay, guys, take a look at the first wide line, okay, in Rashi. First wide line in Rashi. Lo yishmi'a lechu, umikan yicholim lilmoid. Here we're able to learn. Taimish shel Mishnah. That's Surin Milechel. What's the reason it's asa to eat? Mishamayla, because of a higher calling. The af agav the mahanya zriya lechulin, even though zriya helps to in chulin, over Rabban and Maila, the loitahani letruma, they made a Maila by truma that what lahalis letaira gemura leheter achila. It'll take care that it won't be. It'll take off the level of tuma that it won't be metama something else, but it won't take off the level of tuma to be metarit. Guys, here's the teretz. Guys, here's Rabbi Yirmiyah's teretz. Go back to the Mishnah. You replant truma that's tameya. What's the halacha? Halacha number one is that it's tahar. It's not metama other things. Halacha number two, it's asa to eat. It's asa to eat. Fred the Gemara, I don't understand. Mimon of shach. If it's tahar, you should be able to eat it. And if it's not able to eat, then it shouldn't be tahar. Rav Yirmiyah brings in that we see that when you replant something, that it depends what status did it have when you replanted it. Was it in the state of kedusha or not? So, for example, you had May Chag, you went ahead, you took water, you're going to use this water for Nisach Mayim. You're not Magdash it yet, it contracts Tumah, connected to a mikvah, in other words, replanted, no problem. If you're Magdash it and you replant it, problem. Why? That's a mila, a level they held by kachim. That it's even though it's replanted, you can't use it. So too by truma, a mila by truma. If you replant it, taka takes off the tumah. But to the extent that you could eat it, that it doesn't do. To the extent that you could eat it, it doesn't take it off. And that's pshat now in the Mishnah, guys. It's a beautiful pshat. This is Rabbi Yirmiyah's. Turn back to the Amid Aleph. Go down 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12 lines down. Tanan. Shesili truma sashinit ma'a. Plants of truma that became tamei. Fish shaslan, and you replanted it. So Torah milatame. The Torah from milatame something else. Basura milacho, it's also to eat. Initially, we thought it's also to eat because of Hesach Hadas. Rabbi Yirmiyah says no. Here's the pshat in the Mishnah. It's tar milatame, because when you replant something, it taka loses its shem tuma. Why is it also to eat? Because they made a special mila by kachim. For who what then they made a special mila by truma that despite the fact it made it tar, le'inyan being metama, it did make it tar completely that you could eat it. That's the pshat. Guys, good? That's the pshat. Okay, back by us. Yosef Rav Dimi, the Kamalolo Shmait. So Rav Dimi was saying over to Sugya, Amle Abaya, Hikdishim Bekli Ka'amar, this Kodesh that was speaking about is Makish Bekli. Alvu Peh Le'ov Rabbanan Maila, Aidum Peh Nami of Rabbanan Maila. In order for this Maila of Kachim to be enacted, does it have to, in other words, would the Mayim have had to be in a Kli Shares where it gets Kedusha from the Kli? Or even if it's Magdish Bepeh, which is not Kedushas Aguf, would it also not be able, would we also make that Maila, that Zriya or Hashak in this case would not help? That's the question. Is there a chilik between Kedushas Aguf and not? So Amalei, Rav Dimi told Abaya, Zu loy shamati, I didn't hear. This I didn't hear, but Kiyotze ba shamati, similar to this I did hear. And now, this is the whole reason you brought in this Gemara, guys. There's always a reason. Here it is. Anavim shenitmu, grapes that became tamei, dorchan, process them, squeeze them, v'achka chekdishon, and afterwards, what? You could, they're magish l'nesachim, tahirim, chekdishon. Okay, chekdishon v'achka dorchan, tameim. If first you magdish them and then you squeeze them, then they would go ahead and be tamei. Why? That would be a maila that they made the rabbanon. That would be a maila again. If you magdashim, even though they're really not tamei, a maila they made. I've anovim the kedushas peninu. Anovim do not have a shaykhus to a kli. You're not magdash them with kli sharis, guys. So therefore, the kedushas peh, vafilu hachi of rabbanon maila. So let's go ahead and bring a raya to Yeshayla by the water. That just like by a novim, kedushas peh, they made a maila by to say you can't use it. It's tamei. Huadin by the water. So that's what Rav Dimi wanted to answer Abaya. Some Rav Yosef, anavim kamer. How you can compare grapes to water? Hachab anavim shel truma askinon. The kedushas peh dithu kedushas kli damya. Avachani the boy kli bepeh lo yav rabbanan maila. Okay, meaning, guys, the case of the grapes was truma. Truma has no kedu. How does something become truma? By you saying this is truma. The peh of truma is equal to the kachim of a kli. Ashayla is by the kachim of a kli. The peh. In other words, by truma, the only game in town is peh. By kachim, there's two levels. So the fact that truma, but peh is a maila is not a indicative necessarily by kachim, because by kachim we find the kli and the peh. So that we remain a shaila. What's the din b'peh? Now along the way over here, you did something very interesting. You said over here that anavim that became tamei, you can go ahead and process them. We didn't mention anything about a beitza or not beitza, guys, right? Yesterday's shir, the reason you can process them is because since the grape was less than a beitza, so it doesn't have the capacity to transmit Tumas Eichlin. But over here, you seem to say, Darchan, you go ahead and process them. It's mashma afilu tuva. I feel if they're much bigger than a grape. So that's the Gemara's kasha now. So we're leaving the sugya of that we discussed and going to like a shtickle new sugya. Says the Gemara. Darchan va'afilu tuva, even if they're larger than grape than eggs. Umiyam Rabbi Yochanan hachi vam Rabbi Yochanan anavim shenitma'u darchan pachas mikabeitza. They have to be less than the size of an egg. So Iba is saying hachanami pachas mikabeitza. Very easy way out. Over here, when it says you process them, you just add the words and you process them if they're not the size of an egg. Iba is saying another teretz. Hasam over here the nagula barishon. Here, you know why you need less than a beitza? Because the tumah was a rishon. The avle inu sheni. Hacha over there, where it can be larger, the nagu b'sheni the havale shlishi. I got grapes. How did this grape become tamei? This grape touched a rishon. What does that make the grape? It makes the grape a sheni, correct? A sheni can be metama truma. Tiny's favorite sugya. Anything that can be metama truma will make a liquid into a rishon. It'll elevate it. So therefore, that liquid will come out. You got a problem. Therefore, to avoid that, it has to be less than a beitza, because the liquid coming out has the capacity to be metama. Conversely, let's say the grape got tuma. Let's say the grape came tummy, guys, from a sheni. What's the grape now? It's a shlishi. A shlishi can't be metama to mashka, right? And therefore, that's why it can be larger than a beitza. So the kasha, one place beitza, one place not beitza, two terutzim. Even the place not beitza really is a beitza. Easy way out. Next teretz, alum the sheteretz. Can that juice be mekamet tummy or not? If it was the grape itself was a sheni, then it could be makabel tuma. If the grape itself was a shlishi, then it can't. So if it can't be makabel tuma, it can even be larger than an egg because I'm not worried about tumas cycling. That would be the teretz. So let's see it. So I by Sema, Hasam, where it has to be less than an egg. The Nagilu Barishoin is where the grape touched the Rishoin. Davlish in Usheni. The grape is a Sheni, and therefore can be the liquid that's inside. So go Hacha, the Nagu B'Sheni. Over here, the grape touched the Sheni. Davlish Shlishi. The grape is a Shlishi. Therefore, it can be the liquid inside. Amarava, Afana Namitnina. We also make milas. This teretz of Rav Yirmiyah. Guys, Rav Yirmiyah's teretz. That the reason why it's possible to eat the truma that was replanted is because it's a mila we make by truma. The Gemara now is just going to conclude with a few cases of milas. The Gemara is going to conclude a few cases of milas, meaning where we make elevations in kedusha. It says by paraduba v'nasan alav mayim chayim el keli, and you should put on it on the ashes mayim chayim el keli. Now, when it says Mayim Chaim Al Keli, it's mashma that the water itself touches the kli touches the ma'ayan. The kli touches the source. It's touching the ma'ayan. That directly, in other words, you take the kli and you put it in the fountain. That's why v'nasan olav Mayim Chaim Al Keli. Mashma, the Mayim Chaim is in the kli, right? It comes directly from the Mayim Chaim, from the fountain. Then it says the lashon, however, the nasan. Nasan means you put alma tlushininu, right? Meaning it's mashma. You're taking the water from a kli and putting it into the other kli. So you have a stira mineu bay. Do you have to put the kli in the fountain, or can you take water from the fountain and put it in the kli? It's mashma that you have to be connected to the fountain. Ella, what do you have to say? Really, you can put what? Really, you can put what? Water directly from one kli to another. A lamaila, it's a maila to put it directly from the mikvah, from the fountain. Achanami maila, right? So it's the cross and a smachta ba'alma. When it says mayim chaim el keli, the nasan is the ikka. Nasan means you can put it any which way. But they made a maila, bid paraduma, that the water should go directly from the fountain into the kli, not transfer from one kli to the other kli. Another example of Maila, Amrav Simi Varashi, Afanan Amitanina, we also learned the Maila, Tavo, Va'ala, Eichel B'maisa. A Tful Yoim comes up, he eats Maisa. Herav Shemesh, he goes to the mikvah, Achel Truma. The Truma in the Kachim Loi. He can eat Truma, but he can't eat Kachim. Why? Amai Tahahu. If he's Tahar, why can he go ahead and eat? Rashi says, B'Kachim Loi. In Tumas the Bas Kapara, he can go in Zav of Yoledas. B'Chusa Kippurim, right? You're not able to touch him. Why not? Ela Maila, they made a Maila, Hachinami Maila. So it's a Maila they made by what? By Tful Yom, that a Tful Yom is B'Chusa Kippurim. If it's a guf, if it's a tumah that came from the guf, like Zav Yoledas. Amar Vashi Afana Namitin, another example of Maila, Basar. We said this the other day. Well, actually, we said a few days ago that the basar, the only downside of my Gemara, I don't have to look him in the Gemara. It says, a basar that touches anything that touched something tummy, you shouldn't eat. And we said v'habasa is extra. So what I learned from the v'habasa, the Rabbi says eitzim levaina. Now, eitzim, wood, levaina, frankincense, they're not something you could eat. Yet they're makabel tumah from this pasuk. Eitzim levaina b'nei etmuyininu. They're not edible foods. So why are they tameh? Ela maila, it's a maila, hachanami maila. So here too, over here, we made a maila. So again, a few examples of maila. So again, Yotzim Midvareinu, we have two terutzim to the kasha of replanting it. Why is it us to eat? One opinion is according to the Babylonians that it has hesach hadas, and that would only work according to Rabbi Yochanan, but not according to Reish Lakish. Right? It would only work according to Reish Lakish and not Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan, since hesach hadas is din tumah, the taking off should help. And according to the second teretz, Rabbi Yirmiyah, it's just a mila. That you can't eat it is because they made a halfway step. Replanting takes off tumah, the Indian transferring tumah to something else. It does not take off the tumah, the fact that allow you to eat it. Wish everybody a good Shabbos. I thank you for listening. And Be'ez Hashem tomorrow night.